So let's just jump into where we are on SBUHCA. And then we'll just make a quick announcement about our upcoming. I'll just make the announcement right now and we'll make it on the back end. If you could just circle the date of June 22nd. June 22nd from 12 to 2 Eastern, 9 to 11 Pacific. We are One Pair States and the Justice for All Network and other Cumbers are welcome to co-sponsor. We're doing one of our quarterly or third. This will be, I think, our seventh, Mike, sixth or seventh intergenerational summit. These summits are designed to bring in a generational and diverse collective of folks to discuss issues that intersect with healthcare justice. We've done topics on reproductive rights, on labor organizing, on climate, on LGBTQ issues, disabilities, veterans, and so forth. And this upcoming one is titled, the working title right now is Anti-Fascism, Pro-Democracy, the 2024 Election and Beyond. So it's going to be a strategic kind of a gathering, like thinking big about where we are and how we need to conceptualize our work, how we need to connect to other social justice efforts, how we need to get out of our silos, as it were, and be thinking in terms not just of healthcare justice, but also health justice, broadly conceived. So June 22nd, and we're putting together a program. We've already got Rodney Sadler, for those of you who know Rodney, he'll be with us. Egberto Willies will be with us. And we'll continue to be planning this. So keep this in your thoughts and mind for that event on June 22nd. Which, by the way, is the anniversary of Napoleon's invasion of Russia and Hitler's invasion of Russia, right, June 22nd. So this really is a timely and important period. And also, just to keep in mind, here I'm going to be attending the Netroots Nation gathering. It's the largest gathering of progressives in the country in Baltimore in mid-July. If anybody's around or interested in coming in, Netroots Nation, I think it's July 19th to the 22nd, if I have that right. That's a huge opportunity for us to fly the flag for One Pair States and the work that we do, and to connect with other organizations. And I also plan to be at the Chicago Convention for the Democrats in August. That's August 19th to the 22nd. So big opportunities coming up. We have to look at this election year as an opportunity year, not fret, not get too anxious, but stay focused on what we're doing and think strategically. Keep asking yourself, is what I'm doing in this moment relevant? Is it moving the ball down the field, or am I just spinning my wheels, spending a disproportionate amount of time yelling at people on email? Not very helpful, I find. But be thinking strategically. Thinking about like where we're going and what it is that I'm doing right now. And with strategy in mind, I don't know, did anybody catch the Congressional Progressive Caucus? They announced their agenda going into 2025, working on the assumption that Biden's going to be elected. They'll take the Senate and the House. Perhaps the most notable thing for our work is that the National Medicare for All bill is not a priority for the first time in a long time for the Congressional Progressive Caucus. And the statement coming out of Jayapal's office, and I met with Rachel Madley at Representative Jayapal's office, is that the National Medicare for All bill is simply, it's not supported by Biden, and they're not growing fast enough their support in Congress for that legislation. It's a recognition of the outsized influence of the medical industry. And I just want to share that with you, which also means that the emphasis on the State-Based Universal Healthcare Act should ramp up. And this is really, as we've been saying, this is our strategy, this is our theory of change, is that the states offer, because there are so many states, so many more opportunities to model a universal single-payer Medicare for all system, that this is the more likely path to get to national Medicare for all. Jayapal is on record as having said that. Bernie Sanders is on record as having said that. You might remember that Jayapal carried the SBUHCA bill. I say SBUHCA, State-Based Universal Healthcare Act. That's our shorthand for State-Based Universal Healthcare Act. Is that Pramila carried the bill and is very proud of that bill. She's the first co-sponsor on the bill, and she handed it off to Ro Khanna when she took the National Medicare for All bill. So this is a reality check. And I'm your ears and eyes on the inside in Washington, D.C. This is the first time that we've had a dedicated single-payer lobbyist, educator, advocate, citizen advocate doing this work. So it's real important that we coordinate our work on the inside and on the outside. My job is to build relationships. My job is to get our work being taken seriously. My job is to get members of Congress, now both in the House and the Senate. If you haven't already heard, we got a senator for the first time to carry this bill, Ed Markey. And I think we all deserve a pat for that on the back, because that was not an easy lift, getting a senator to do this. And Ed Markey is now partnered up with Elizabeth Warren, and we have a number of other senators who are very interested in the bill. We have hearings that are coming. We had a first hearing where it was announced in Boston, and that we'll be doing more hearings on the SBUHCA legislation going forward. So that's a huge step up for our campaign. Let's see, so that's the Senate bill. The House bill, as you all know, was introduced last fall. We currently have 29 co-sponsors, and I've now pivoted back over to the House. I had a meeting with the legislative director for Brian Fitzpatrick, who is, along with Representative Chavez DeRemer, the two most independent Republicans. It's not saying a lot, but they are the two most independent Republicans right now in the House. And I got a very interesting exchange with Jacqueline Baguette, who is the legislative director for Brian Fitzpatrick. He's from Bucks County, Pennsylvania. I raised my kids there for 20 years, so I have a history. I know him a little bit. I knew his brother, who was his predecessor in Congress, more so. But out of the conversation came, why don't we consider going into 2025, having Ro Khanna introduce this legislation with my boss, Brian Fitzpatrick? Right? So that I think this is a very important conversation. It's not a commitment, it's a conversation. It's not a commitment. Just know that this conversation has to go back and forth. But they do know each other. Ro Khanna and Brian Fitzpatrick went to the same high school in Bucks County. Ro Khanna is from the Philadelphia area. Went to school in Chicago, then Stanford, taught at Stanford, and then settled in the Silicon Valley area. But this is the kind of strategic, creative thinking that's going to get us much further down the road. And so just be mindful that we are doing really, really good work here, and are behaving and thinking all the time about what is the best way to move forward. So that was a very good conversation that I had. It took a little bit of money that I had to put on the table to get to a fundraiser. I mean, this is what Mike and I collaborated on. I said, I've got to get that meeting. So I went to one of his fundraisers. I'm living on a Social Security check, as many of you know. $250 is a lot. And with that in mind, if you have any resources, we certainly do need them. We do need contributions to keep up this work and keep it going. Because right now, we are the most relevant game in town. That's just the political reality. So please encourage your friends to sign up, to support us. We also have a petition that's circulating. Mike, do you want to just make a comment about the national petition? Or Paul? Or David?
I can go ahead. In cooperation with Social Security Works, One Pair States has issued a petition endorsing HR 6270, Ro Khanna's bill, State-Based Universal Healthcare Act. And so far we have over 15,000 signers all across the nation. And then there's a separate petition campaign for the Senate version, which Senator Markey is planning to introduce along with Senator Warren.
And our database is growing, right?
Well, I thought it was. I'll explain later.
Okay, all right. And the timing of the introduction of the Senate bill, I'm trying to get a handle on that. You'll be the first to know as soon as I learned that. My understanding was it was going to be introduced this week, but there's been a delay in its introduction. We still need to get to bang on our senators to get them to sign on potentially as original co-sponsors. So keep that work up. Other folks who are part of the SBUHCA work group who might want to add to this, I see Mary Beth, your hand is up. Why don't I call on you? And then after that, Chris, David, who else is in the room? Charlie, anybody want to, if I'm missing anything, Julie, Ann, just help me out if I've missed anything in terms of SBUHCA update. Mary Beth?
Thanks, Chuck. First of all, I just want to say how gross it is that you felt like you had the only way you could get a meeting was to like go to a fundraiser, right? But anyway, that aside, and you don't, I don't think we have to go through the room, but I would really like to know what conversations have gone on with Oregon senators, just to see what we might be able to do on that side. If I'm not mistaken, I think all of the Democratic House members have signed on to the House bill, but just thinking
Yes.
about Markey's bill and curious about conversations with Wyden, but also Merkley. And you can send me an email later, Chuck, if that's easier. But I am very curious about how those guys are reacting to this proposal.
Yeah, I mean, I just very quickly, I did speak to Jeff Merkley's health policy advisor, and in the moment, this has gone back a couple of weeks, she was very positive and hopeful. But the final call is the senator's call, and he has to make that decision himself. I'm not going to speculate as to why he's not signed on yet, but stay at it, stay at it, stay at it, keep banging away. He's our best shot, in Oregon. And also, I mentioned Chavez DeRemer and also Cliff Bentz. We've had some initial good contacts there. Warren George, Sam Metz.
Interesting.
I want to circle back with you, Warren and Sam, and make sure that I've got my P's and Q's lined up, because we want to get Chavez DeRemer. When I dropped her name, it was very helpful in terms of advancing the conversation with Brian Fitzpatrick. And yeah, I mean, this is it is a money town. This is the reality, and sometimes we just have to do this.
Right. No, I understand that, but still.
Yeah. So anyway, anybody else in the SBUHCA work group want to add anything that I've missed, please?
Yeah, I'll add just a little bit. So I'll talk with Mary Beth more about Oregon senators offline. And somebody had brought up what answer do we have to the critics, the single payer supporting critics of SBUHCA. And there is a Common Dreams article available that some of us wrote together. And there's also a one-pager related to that. So, and I think that Mike Huntington actually put a link to the one-pager in the chat already that relates to how to answer the single payer supporting critics of SBUHCA. So stop there.
Okay. Yeah. And I mean, and just for context, I will say that the reason we're being attacked is because we're winning. Fundamentally, this is politics 101. David Loud.
Yes, regarding the national petition for the House SBUHCA bill, I just wanted to make a couple of points. It's going to be running for several weeks now, and what we're going to do with it is plan an event in DC to deliver the petition to the members of Congress to whom it is addressed by the signers. In other words, everybody who signs it will identify their address and therefore their congressional district. And I want to ask Mike, would it be possible for you to put into the chat or direct people to the One Pair States website to be able to sign that petition? Okay. Because if there are folks here who haven't yet signed the petition or circulated it among your own folks in your organizations, that would be great.
Oops. Okay, thanks, David. And I dropped a contribution link in there. That takes you to the site, and you can negotiate off of that, get over to our other tabs as well. But Mike, yeah, if you can link the petition over there, that'd be great. Ann Jones, Ann, your hand is up. Are you ready to go?
Oh, no, nothing to add other than asking for that one-page explanation of why SBUHCA for single-payer critics. As you know, I'm having issues in my own state selling this bill.
Well, I think Chris Curry dropped a link in the chat. I think that's
for the talking points.
Yeah, I believe
Okay,
that's
thanks,
correct. Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
So Chris dropped the article, Mike dropped the talking points one pager.
Okay. And also, I spent a lifetime studying, social change politics, taught it for 32 years in college. The famous phrase, I think, attributed to Mahatma Gandhi, first they ignore you, then they mock you, then they attack you, then you win. So keep that in mind, that it's our success that's going to bring out a lot of opposition. And it's interesting that it starts from, within supposedly our community, but we're not yet a unified community. We work very hard with the folks who are attacking us on stopping the privatization of Medicare, which is astonishing when you think about one of the attack points against the work that we're doing. It's just it's perplexing for some, but not surprising for others who have been in the circle and interacted with some of these people over the years. Not at all surprised.
Well, and I'll just share that our biggest barrier here in Minnesota this year, maybe for the next 2-3 years, is the big well-funded progressive groups have chosen to push a Minnesota Care public option, so-called. And I know you all know that the policy around a public option always sounds good, does nothing to fix the underlying problems of our system. It appeals to people who want an easy win. It could cost us 3 to 5 years of progress or more. While they, get that in place and implement and evaluate and find out it's not helping. It's costing.
Well, in this case,
We're up
in this
against
case,
that.
yeah, I mean, in this case, several states are going to surpass you, and they'll model it for what's
Mhm,
going to happen in
mhm.
Minnesota, and that's why we fight on multiple fronts. And
Yeah.
I'm sorry to hear that. I know it's very
Oh.
disappointing to our dear friend John Marty.
Oh, it's hugely disappointing.
But at the same time, this is why we need to center our work.
Mhm,
And also, I don't know that Steve
mhm,
Auerbach is in the room, but we've ramped up our campaign in New York, the New York Health Act. This could be huge. This would be the largest state that could get across the finish line. And the former legislator who carried that bill is getting back into the fight, which is great. So, and we're going to figure out how to negotiate the terrain with municipal unions that have been resistant to this. At least their leadership has been. But we're working on that front as well. So New York is a campaign that's been sort of sitting in the background for a long time for us, but we're now fully engaged in that work. Very exciting. All these fronts. There's so many opportunities. So please support the work we do as much as you can, and keep also in mind that we're whipping into shape our website. Our social media campaign is ramping up with Simon Hutton, collaborating with Consuelo or Cello Echeverria. And we're going to be doing podcasting as well. So all this work does need resources and support. I know I'm repeating myself, but we're all sacrificing and doing what we can to advance this campaign. And I truly believe that this is anti-fascist, pro-democracy work. To put in context the work that we're doing over at the summit, it all is intersectional. It all interconnects. We need a win. We need a win. We need a win in the worst way, and that's, I think, why we're going to succeed here. Chris Curry.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we cover the idea that we could modify the SBUHCA Act at some point, because there are a few things that could be better about it, and I'm wondering what our chances are of doing that.
The chances are excellent. I mean, I'm the one building the relationships here interpersonally, with Tara Wilson in Markey's office and Emma Preston. You all have known her. She's come to many of our SBUHCA meetings. And so that's the kind of work. And then somebody else, an old hill hand. There aren't too many old time staffers here, but one of them you might know, Mike Darden from John Conyers days. He's on Pramilla's staff. the chief of staff, and Mike Darden is a longtime friend. So we'll get that work done. We'll get you connected, and we'll get that deep dive conversation on improving the policy. Right now, we've got to build out the movement. The concentration's got to be on building our numbers and building our connections and being very intentionally intersectional, connecting ourselves. Charlie, your hand is up. Was that from before?
No, I just wanted to say a little bit more about what Chris just said, that some of us are working on that effort to think about improvements and to figure out who to talk to in the Senate or the House about that. So we're talking about that and trying to make some forward motion on that. So keep people informed as we do so.
Yeah, I mean, it's a handful of people at this point. We're talking about members in the House. Now, if we bring Fitzpatrick in with Kana, that would be an amazing connection. And then Pramila's office is at the center of all this. I mean, she really recrafted the legislation in a significant way. And then on the Senate side, we'll start with Markey and build out from there. So thank you. Oh, and by the way, Fitzpatrick is on the HELP subcommittee of Ways and Means. That's really important. HELP is health, education, labor, and pensions. That's where healthcare issues are decided. So he's primed and positioned, is Brian Fitzpatrick, to help push this legislation. Any other questions related to the state-based universal healthcare update, where we are, where we're going? Okay. I hope you're all satisfied that, we are making progress. Stay in touch. Feel free to reach out to me and Mike, and if you have any questions, concerns, but keep going after your House members and your Senate members. This is about education at this point. Our issue is still not in the center of the radar screen. We've got to move it toward the center of the radar screen. That's what this is about: educating, building out our coalitions, building relationships, on Capitol Hill and at the local level, making sure that your member understands that we're serious about this, that this has got to get done. It's got to get done lickety split. So that's our message for today on the state-based universal healthcare. And we do meet weekly, so we're keeping ourselves connected in advancing the work on the petition and the policy side of it that Charlie and Chris cited. And so that's our update there. And I mentioned the upcoming June 22nd summit, where we'll build out the conceptual connection with all of our groups. And then thirdly, today for our agenda, we were going to get an update on what's happening in Oregon. And we've got the honor of how should we address you, Warren? I mean, do we need to bow or anything? Do we have to don our hats, or Mr. Vice Chairman?
Your boredness will do.
Your boredness. Okay, are we starting, Mike? Are we starting with Warren? Have you this orchestrating what we're doing today?
Well, Warren can take it.
Okay, I'll just jump in quickly. The Oregon Universal Health Plan Governance Board had its first official meeting on Tuesday. Elected chair and vice chair. Chair is Helen Belenka. I was elected as vice chair, and Helen and I plan on operating more or less as a unit of two for the leadership of the board. We have hired an executive director who has hit the ground running and is doing a great job coming up to speed. We have two additional employees, a senior health or a senior policy analyst and a coordinator who started on Monday. They started on Monday and ran the Zoom, ran the technology for the meeting on Tuesday. I think the mood is pretty exciting. I feel like we have a pretty good board staff. We plan on identifying our weaknesses and supplementing as necessary with with outside advisors and being sure that we have ways of working with all of the stakeholders involved. So I think that's basically the, yeah, I think one additional thing that could be said is the support from the state, and we're actually under the Department of Consumer and Business Services, not actually under the Health Department, but we're getting great departmental support, even though the governor is skeptical of whether we'll get anything done. She's actually and her staff are keeping track. And in short, I think we're aware that the task is extremely daunting, but I think we've got a good team.
Thank you for that update, Warren. Do folks have questions? I mean, what can folks do outside of Oregon to begin with to help your work inside of Oregon?
Well, I think your work on SBUHCA has been pretty amazing, getting further than I believed would be possible this year. I think there's got to be some amendments. I think the kind of program that we're likely to consider in Oregon is really, I think it's a shame that some of the non-supporters of SBUHCA really don't understand what we're trying to do, and they're making up stuff, and that needs to be countered over time.
Okay, just from a nuts and bolts perspective. Oh, Bill, your hand is up. I'll go to you next. Bill Semple. Oh, I think you're muted. Unmute.
Yeah, I was muted. Okay. Yeah, Warren, thanks, Chuck. Warren, could you speak to the mission of the governance board and how you see that tying into getting to single payer?
Yes, sorry, that was in my notes, but I skipped over it for brevity. Our responsibility is to provide a complete financial plan, including basically a public corporation ready to go and presented to the legislature in September of 2026.
Bill, is that, do you want any more than that? Is that good?
No, that's good.
Okay.
And hopefully we can get a number of states working in 2026 for legislation to get implementation. We're working on that here in Colorado.
Okay. So the other question I was just going to ask, just are there ways that the other folks on the call here who are not necessarily part of the SBUHCA working group or myself, how can folks help across the country? Are there things that they can do at a grassroots level to spotlight, to support resources, op-eds, just say, hey, look at what's happening in Oregon, just to boost people's spirits and morale even? Are there things that people can be doing?
Yeah, I think we're a little bit cautious so far. I mean, we're a new group, and we kind of have to learn that we're for the next 2.5 years, we have to be each other's best friends, and our relationship with each other, our working relationship, is going to be pretty key. And so we want to kind of focus our conversation inward for a little bit before we go more external, and then we'll be working a lot on how do we advocatively get public input and full public input across the board, and how do we disseminate accurate information. I think anything that promotes the cause of universal care and promotes a good discussion is helpful everywhere.
Terrific. Okay, thank you, Warren. That helps to clarify. You need to build trust and relationships. And right now, a big spotlight on you probably isn't the best. Let's see, Ken and then Lou.
So I think our mission in the long run and the short run is education and keeping people aware of what's going on. The task force that generated the governing board purposely did not talk to the press, and the only people who knew what was going on were the people on the committee. And I thought that was a mistake. And fortunately, the Lund Report, which is a local health policy newsletter, published a summary, just sort of a standard, reasonable, appropriate, not particularly biased one way or the other report about the governing board yesterday. Unfortunately, it's behind a paywall. But I can send a copy to you, Chuck, of the full text, and you guys can figure out what to do with it, unless the people who are on that committee really feel very strongly that telling people around the country and around Oregon about the governing board is a bad idea.
Warren?
Yeah, I hear what you're saying there, Ken. And we're actually, one of our tasks is to write our own policy about how we handle press and how we handle speaking engagements. And so I'm not at liberty to say, but there are arguments on both sides. I happen to be on, I've always believed error on over communicate, except when I forget to tell things to my wife. But I also understand that being trustworthy and being accurate is also extremely important. If we say something prematurely, it can do damage for a long time. So I just ask people to respect both sides of the issue while we try to sort that out.
Okay, very good. Thank you for clarifying that. Let's see. Lou, then Mary Beth, then Charlie. Yeah, Lou, Mary Beth, then Charlie.
Yeah, Warren, are those board meetings, governance board meetings, are they open to be watched on Zoom?
Yes, and one of the things that we would say foremost is there is a public process. Please take advantage of it. Attend meetings by Zoom, provide public comment, and that is always that's always a good channel to provide input, and we'll promise to read everything that we get.
Okay, Lou. All right, thank you. Mary Beth.
I actually think Charlie had his hand up first.
Okay.
So go ahead, Charlie.
So I wanted to bring up another thing, sort of a parallel track or something that can be done independently of a state single payer system, and that is getting a more widely available public pharmacy benefit manager. And so there is an entity in Oregon, ArrayRx, or actually it's now in Oregon, Nevada, Washington, and Connecticut. And there's attempts to expand it to other states, essentially a drug purchasing pool with potential to become bigger. And so any states that you can convince to talk with those at ArrayRx to become part of this drug purchasing pool, I would encourage you to do so, because that can go on independently of other efforts, and it should go on. It would be wonderful if by the time Oregon had had their plan ready to go, that we also had a drug purchasing pool with 45 states involved. I mean, so there's work that can be done in that direction as well.
Okay. Warren, did you want to respond to that or just let that keep going? Thanks, Charlie. And we'll take that up over at the SBUHCA work group, right, Charlie? Okay, yeah. Let's see, up next, well, let's see, Mary Beth, did you still want to speak?
Yes, thanks, Chuck. So I think a couple of things. A, Charlie, thanks for bringing up the purchasing pool, and I don't remember the lovely lady from Maine, but Shelley
Ingrid?
Pellegrini. I'm sorry
Pingree.
if I'm butchering her last name, but y'all will know her. She, as you probably know, Julie, that's who it is.
Yep.
You probably know she's very, and was back in the day, very interested in this drug purchasing issue. And I worked with her in the before times, before she was in Congress, on this issue when the Oregon prescription drug purchasing pool was first being advocated for in Oregon. So I just wanted to flag that. You probably know that, but yeah, and it's been very effective too. And I think that it will show, you know, on one of those skepticism things with the public about government not can't do nothing right, right? And you know, there's a lot of mistrust with government these days. That is an element that will show that, hey, look, government can do this. And oh, by the way, it's saving me money, right? So I think that's really key. And then back to like what folks can do, and I would never want to disagree with Warren, but I do think, and I'm not, but I do think it is very important that people do stay engaged. Chuck, hate to ask people to also go to our website and maybe join our effort, whether that's financial or coming to any of our, you know, committee meetings. Check out the HCAO.org website, because that is our role here, right? To really educate and activate Oregonians to engage with this governance board. And Warren, is it fair to say that the board is not going to start from A, right? They're not starting at the very beginning. Isn't it true that they're kind of launching from the premise of the 770 task force and the recommendations out of that? Would that be fair to say?
Yes.
And so
There'll probably be nothing in the task force that we won't revisit, just to make sure that it's understood. But you have to remember that the 770 task force was incomplete. And so when you put in the missing parts, you might have to change or do a little bit of adjustment to some of the parts that were already considered to be more or less absolutes. That isn't quite the word I want, but we need a total thing, and until all the parts were there, we can't say that any of the parts are perfect.
Yes, totally agree. But I think I bring that up to let folks know that we're not starting at the beginning again with yet another task force, right? There's 3 incumbents on this governance board that served on the task force. So I think that's a very helpful thing in terms of the institutional memory and really helping the newer members to this governance board understand those issues that were discussed before, make sure there's agreement. Could be new ideas, who the heck knows, right? So it is a very exciting time, and we are committed to being that first domino, folks, and helping you all achieve a universal single payer care in your state too. But we are on the way. So any way you can help us, right, with your smarts, you know, check out our website. If you want to be part of one of our committees, whether that's communications or legislative or anything else, that is always very helpful as we go to grow in Oregon, so we can push the ball further for y'all.
Okay,
Just in terms of an update about Maine, a few of us, I actually was in New Zealand at the time, so I couldn't do it, but a few of us met directly with Shelley Pingree, and we've also reactivated our contacts with her legislative aides. So if you could, Mary Beth, I'll give you my email. If you could send me some specifics around pharmacy benefit national legislation, I'm sure that she would be interested in pursuing that I mean, in addition to her being
A rock
active
star.
co-sponsor.
Great. I'll work with Charlie on that because he's our
Okay.
brainy PBM guy.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Okay, thanks, Mary Beth. We're at near the top of the hour, so keep it brief here. Leslie, then Ann. Leslie, or you joined the meeting a little bit later. Where are you from, Leslie? Unmute. You're muted.
I'm from Colorado, and I'm calling mainly for information and to let you all know that you know, we're working on legislation here to do a study on the financing of single payer healthcare, which you already know about. The Colorado School of Public Health is going to do an intensive study. There's one done already, which you will probably know about in 1176, but this one is supposed to be getting a lot of questions answered that hopefully will make, by the time we are hopefully putting it on the ballot in 25 or 26, that we'll have some good ammunition to persuade the public to consider it. But I'm just checking in because I'm going to be the de facto person with PNHP. We've been so busy out here in Colorado. We have great leadership, but PNHP, I'm filling in a gap here, and I just wanted to know more about the pharmacy manager. That would be great. I'd like to get some of that information for my group. What we're working for basically is trying to get resolutions supporting Medicare for all from healthcare organizations in Colorado, specifically Colorado Medical Society. So that's kind of the thing that's been, we dropped the ball on that because we've been doing so much other stuff. And the last thing is, I'm just curious about this board. I may have misunderstood it, that Oregon is doing the SBUHCA group project. Is that you all have been talking about the first half of this meeting? What is that organization?
That's our shorthand. It's an acronym that spells out State-Based Universal Health Care Act. We just shorten it for speech. It's also known as HR 6270, Ro Khanna's bill that was introduced late fall.
Oh,
So
great. I know all about that.
Okay, cool. So thank you for that update. Yeah, and also you probably know Lydia Guzman is part of that work group that we have, the SBUHCA work group, State-Based Universal Healthcare Act. So we got a lot of great representation from Colorado. So thank you so much for your work, Leslie. And if you would drop your email in the chat for folks to get you information on the PBMs, the pharmacy benefits manager issue. Just drop your email if you would in the chat. Can you do that, Leslie?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Okay, perfect. Okay, let's see, Ann.
I think I missed Charlie's start of your comment about considering a state-run drug purchasing pool. Would that bypass these commercial PBMs?
Yes, I mean, it already exists, and what I'm encouraging is for states to have somebody within their, state organization that might already be involved with drug purchasing for the state to contact people at ArrayRx, and I can give you that contact information. So
yeah, please. I just heard testimony yesterday at the omnibus bill hearings here in Minnesota. The independent pharmacists are huge allies for us, huge potential allies for us. Yes. And we have not activated them. I talked to a couple of them. They are so fired up about the problems with prescription drug.
Yes, and ArrayRx is working with them in Oregon, and that's part of their mission, is to make sure that independent pharmacies stay alive.
Are those letters RARX? What does that mean?
Array, as in
Array.
ARRAY, than
Okay,
our
never heard
apps.
of it.
And anyway, just contact me, or I will contact
Okay,
you with the information.
you.
Yes.
Thanks, perfect.
We might even, Mike, we might even set up a Discord channel for folks to communicate, right, with Simon. So
Yeah, let's-
anybody,
I don't know
So
how
any-
to use Discord. I'm sorry.
yeah, I know.
Nobody does, but we need to get
I
everybody
just
involved
don't
with
get
Discord.
it just, that is one more piece of technology I just don't get. And I
Don't give
wanna
up.
get it.
Don't give up.
Oh, gal. Yeah,
Well,
okay.
in any case, for Charlie, can you at least collect people who are interested in this topic, like share your email, and then folks can write to you? Is that okay?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So for starters, so we're going back to the late 19th century email for version of communication.
Mhm.
So anyway,
Mhm.
just messing with you, but to connect with Charlie if you want to stay on top of this for Leslie Ann and others. Anybody else? Mike?
Yeah. We didn't get to the corporate practice of medicine, the big battle that we're having right here in River City, Corvallis, Oregon, against United Healthcare, and that's going to be on the agenda for a month from now. So please return for that. And then Chuck mentioned office hours that will be on May 14th, devoted to storytelling. And that sounds, well, why is it storytelling? Well, that's how we will convince legislators is and also to elicit effective stories from people that we engage with. We need to learn that skill. So please look for that announcement for May 14th. It's office hours, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern.
Okay. And any links that people have or updates or announcements, feel free to drop those in the chat. Again, any contributions you can make if you want to get involved, more deeply involved. We're always looking for new blood. We're relaunching our communications work group. We've got an outreach work group, education and policy, of which Caroline is a co-chair. We've got a lot of very good places for folks to plug in of interest. The policy work group, Charlie's one of the representatives of that for policy. We've got a group that's organization development for us to do more effective fundraising. We're also doing relaunching our newsletter. Anybody who's interested in that kind of work, absolutely, just feel free to reach out. And we need lots of hands as well as money to keep this work going. But we're in an amazing place right now. We absolutely are. Let's keep this ball rolling fast and stay with it. This is very critical work that we're doing. It's cutting edge, and it's getting a lot more attention and being taken a lot more seriously here on Capitol Hill. Having a presence in town really does make a big difference. Believe me, it's one thing to communicate from the outside. It's another to just keep showing up. And the story with Markey is that our Massachusetts bill, we're banging on his door, but it wasn't until I kept showing up and I said, look at this bill, look what it can do for amplifying the issue that you want to bring attention to. And in that case, it was the private equity firm that's in the process of destroying several Boston area hospitals. So there are so many ways that we can advance this legislation and get members to take it seriously, take us seriously, and get universal healthcare adopted around the country as a model, and then go national ASAP. So thank you all for all of your great work.